I'm filming a military commissariat. From here we go to the front line. Here we are in this condition. Fighter of the invisible front, put on your pants. Don't dishonor the Russian military.
Mobilization in Russia. Future servicemen in the Republic of Buryatia are given amulets. In Vladivostok, the mobilized put their uniforms in garbage bags. In Primorye, recruits show the Kalashnikov rifles issued to them.
This is what our tankmen were given. They said you have tanks, you don't need rifles.
Due to a failure with the logistical support of the draft, the Deputy Minister of Defense Dmitry Bulgakov was dismissed. Colonel General Mikhail Mizintsev was appointed in his place. It was the one who led the operation in Syria and an assault of the Ukrainian Mariupol. Kremlin propagandists suggest to improve the equipment of the Russian army in a non-trivial way. I quote, "Every rich person chooses 100 conscripts and pays them a certain amount of money every month." On the morning of September 24, protests resumed in a number of Russian cities. They could not be called massive, but they took place in a traditional Russian way, with detentions, batons and police trucks.
Step away.
According to OVD Info human rights activists, several hundred people were detained at protests in Irkutsk, Tomsk, Novosibirsk and Ulan-Ude. In Irkutsk, summonses were issued to opponents of mobilization. All journalists at the rally in Novosibirsk were locked up in the one police truck. Activists of the Vesna movement write. At the same time, on the Finnish, Kazakh and Georgian borders, there are kilometer-long lines of cars. Those fleeing the mobilization stand on the road for many hours. They rip off the stickers with Z letter from the cars and hide any other signs of support of Putin's regime for moving without any problems.
Guys, how long are you here? Day?
Those who do not want to be either a soldier or a fugitive are planned to be imprisoned in accordance with the new amendments to the Criminal Code of Russia. But in addition, those who help to evade will also be jailed. Thus, the Moscow military commissar threatened criminal liability for lawyers who advise Russian subject to mobilization. Since the announcement of mobilization in Russia, at least 6 military registration and enlistment offices have been set on fire. The Kremlin is going to draft 1,200,000 people into the army. This is reported by Meduza, Russian opposition media, citing an anonymous source in federal ministries. The source notes that from the regional centers recommended to recruit at a minimum, and where there is no media and opposition, in depressed regions and remote villages, to call on the maximum. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported that the largest part of those mobilized in Russia are sergeants and privates, as well as junior officers. These categories of the Russian army suffer the most losses in Ukraine.
The enemy currently does not have specialists in deficit specialties, and their training will take a long time. Therefore, first of all, the enemy focused his attention on the formation of combined arms units of subunits of missile troops and artillery. Alexei Gromov, Deputy Chief of the Main Operational Directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
Clear violations of the provisions of the decree on mobilization, especially with regard to men who are not subject to conscription, arouse the anger of Russians, and their distrust of the Kremlin is growing, emphasized the Institute for the Study of War. According to the Institute's analysts, if the attitude of Russians to conscription does not change due to some kind of government handouts, there will be no need to talk about any quality of the reserve. Reported by Serhiy Kulyas, Yulia Bezborodko, UATV News.